What's up guys, so I just wanted to make a quick video to touch on a topic that is carb cycling and whether or not it's actually beneficial for somebody that's in a calorie surplus to cycle their carbohydrates. Now, if you're eating in a calorie deficit, then I'm a big fan of carb cycling because it can lead to mental benefits because you've got a higher calorie day coming up, physical benefits after having some lower calorie days and lower carbohydrate days. Once you implement those high carb days or some form of carb cycling, most often or most likely your physical output's going to be a lot better in the days following a higher carbohydrate day. So for a calorie deficit, I'm a massive fan of carb cycling, and that's another video in itself. But for somebody that's eating in a calorie surplus, I don't see much of a benefit of cycling your carbohydrates because in the end of the day, you've got enough energy, your glycogen stores are going to be topped up and full enough to train at a high intensity anyway. Unless you're in the early stages of a reverse diet, then that's probably the only time carb cycling would be beneficial for someone who's in a surplus. But if you're eating well above your maintenance calorie intake, you've got plenty of energy, you're not hungry all the time, and there's no real reason why you should be why you should be cycling your carbohydrates, then there's no real benefit of doing it. Just stick to a set amount of calories, either a set amount of carbohydrates or ranges, and by ranges I mean you may aim for, let's say, between 250 and 300 grams of carbohydrates per day. When you're in a calorie surplus, I think it's a good idea to have ranges and work with them instead of trying to hit a specific number. It just allows a little bit more flexibility and a little less, it's just not as strict, so you don't actually feel like you're dieting as much. When you're in a surplus, it doesn't really matter how consistent you are with hitting a set amount of macros, because in the end of the day you're trying to gain weight anyway. As long as it's not too far above your maintenance calorie intake, you're going to be fine. So the only other time that I would be looking at cycling carbs in a calorie surplus is to reduce your carbohydrates on rest day. And the only reason for that is because you just don't need as much energy. Your energy output's not going to be as much, so the amount of energy and calories that you're taking in that day isn't going to be as detrimental as it is for a day where you've got a big training session. So that's my opinion on carb cycling in a calorie surplus. I wouldn't do it unless you're in the early stages of a reverse diet. Other than that, stay away from carb cycling in a surplus.